طيب، السلام عليكم شباب كلكم، إن شاء الله طيبين وأموركم كلها طيبة وميسرة من على البعد كلكم. سعيدين جدا باستضافة اليوم براين هوك، حيتكلم لنا عن الأبديتس الجديدة في المنهج بتاع ال CMA اللي هو حيبقى افكتيف من سبتمبر 2024. مستر براين هو الفاوندر لهوك انترناشونال. بدت من 2003، أول بدايته كانت في هوك تريننج في العام 2000. طبعا معروف يعني، انت ما بتقدر تعرف براين هوك لانه هو اصلا اوريدي معرف لدى الكل ومعروف لدى الكل. هو الببلشر رقم واحد في العالم تقريبا بالنسبه للطلاب. عندنا في الميدل ايست هو نمبر 1 كذلك الماتيريال بتاعت براين هوك. فسعيدين جدا باستضافه مستر براين. مستر براين، هاو ار يو؟
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Ryan. We are glad to have you here with this online this session to tell us about the new updates of the CMA syllabus 2024. So,
I'm glad to be here.
thank you. Before to start this session, just introduce brief introduction about yourself and let's get started.
Do you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, I did it in Arabic. Just we need.
Yeah. Okay. I heard parts that I understood it was about me. So,
Yeah.
well, very briefly, thank you for coming today. I know that this is a topic that is important, a lot of questions about, and hopefully we'll be able to answer most of your questions today, if not all of them. I have been teaching CMA since the year 2000. So this is not the first time that I've gone through a change in the syllabus. We went from 4 exams to 2 exams. We've had sections added. We've had sections deleted. We've had sections come back after they'd been deleted previously. And so this is something that happens every 4 or 5 years, and it's a good thing. This is what we want to have happen because it tells us that the syllabus continues to remain current. This is what accounting and finance professionals need to know today, not 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but today. And so I've been teaching CMA since the year 2000, writing the books, making the videos, answering questions, and having a wonderful time helping people from around the world pass their exams. So there's a short introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Brian. So you told me this, or you said that there is always updates. For the current update, what prompted the need for the new syllabus update?
Well, about every 5 years, sometimes 4 years, the IMA does a worldwide job survey where they ask finance directors, CFO, business leaders around the world what skills accounting and finance professionals need today. Not yesterday or 5 years ago, but what they need today. And so whenever they do this job survey, they begin to look at the syllabus and make certain that the syllabus matches what it is that accounting and finance professionals are expected to be able to do. And so this is just every 4 or 5 years, they go through this cycle. And this is the time. The last time was in 2020. The syllabus that we're teaching now was started in the year 2020. This will be 2024. So it's time.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Can you provide us an overview of the key changes in the updated CMA syllabus?
I can. And if you'd like, I have a slideshow that I can show. But before we get into the slides, what I want to, there's 2 points that I want to make about the change in the syllabus. And the first is that the changes are not large. They are not large changes. Nothing big has been added. Nothing big has been deleted. So the syllabus is 99%, 98% the same. Okay, the syllabus is the same in 2024, except for a few small changes. So the first message is, don't panic. Don't panic. Don't worry. This is not a large change. In 2020, when they added this, when they made the syllabus in 2020, they added an entire section.
Section F.
Okay? Section F got added to part 1 and part 2. And so in 2020, a lot of content was added to the exam. In 2024, that is not happening. Okay, so the first message is the changes are not large. The second thing that I want to say is that even though the changes are not large, whatever exam you are studying now, whatever exam you start studying before the end of this year, plan to complete it, plan to pass before the exam changes. Okay? The changes are not large. That's the first message. But the second message is this is a good motivation to finish your studies so that whatever you're studying now and whatever you start in November or December, complete it, pass that exam in the current syllabus. When you start studying in 2024, you'll be studying the new syllabus, and that's perfectly okay.
Okay.
Would you like me to show the slides and go through in detail?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me.
Yeah. Now we are co-host.
Okay, so I will share my screen. I will try to share the right screen. Okay, do you see a PowerPoint slide?
I can see it.
Wonderful. And hopefully everybody can see it then. So what we're going to do here is just walk through the changes. And please don't write this down. Okay, there's no need to write any of this down because they're not large changes. Okay, so as I said, we have small changes being made to the syllabus. Nothing big is being added and nothing is being deleted. And actually this ethics course requirement, that's not happening. That I should have deleted that, but I didn't. So hang on just a second here. I will actually fix that. Okay, now I have this taken care of. I deleted it somewhere, but not everywhere. So no small changes or no large changes, and only small changes being made to the syllabus. So some of the changes are simply the names, just the names being changed. Okay, so Part 2, Section C is now going to be called Business Decision Analysis instead of Decision Analysis. Not a problem. Part 2, Section D is now Enterprise Risk Management, and Part 2, Section E is now Capital Investment Decisions. They just added a word to the title of the section. Now, what has been added in Part 1? In Section A, consolidated financial statements has been added, and we'll come back and look at this in more detail. This is really probably the biggest addition, has to do with consolidated financial statements. But we will see here in a minute that you don't have to do a consolidation. Okay, you need to know what a consolidation is. In Section E, they've added testing methods for internal controls and what we do to fix a problem with our internal controls. Okay, very minor addition to internal controls. In Section F, we need to know the definition of data management, and they have added this topic called logistic regression. But again, we just need to know when it's appropriate. This is not large calculations. Okay. So that's what's been added to Part 1. Let's look at what's been deleted. In Section D, process costing has been made smaller. Theory of constraints has been deleted. Activity-based management has been deleted. And the ways to improve the accounting process has been deleted. Okay, so when we delete process costing calculations and we delete the theory of constraints, those two topics being taken out are bigger than the topic that is being added, bigger than consolidations. And in Section F, deleting a reference to COBIT. Okay. Again, nothing large here. Nothing large. Looking at Part 2, Section A, financial trend analysis has been added. Comparing debt financing to equity financing has been added. Profitability index has been added. And a little bit about types of business fraud and data ethics has been added. Just a comment here in section E, this profitability index, that used to be in the exam. That was in the exam prior to 2020. And so it's coming back into 2020. And what has been deleted in section F, moral philosophies, a little topic about moral philosophies has been deleted. And the statement on management, accounting, values, and ethics has been deleted. So all very small items. Okay, we're not talking about very large things that are being added. Now, having gone through all of that, what I've copied in here next are the actual learning outcome statements for these things that are being added. Okay, the big one is the financial statements and consolidations. And again, I don't want you to focus on this or to try to write all of this down. There's a lot of detail here. But what this comes down to is you need to know what consolidated financial statements are, how it is that they're, what situations they are done, and what needs to be done in a consolidation. Okay, the last bullet there, demonstrate an understanding of intercompany balances and transactions that should be eliminated. You don't have to perform a consolidation. They're not going to give you company A and company B and ask you to perform a consolidation and make those eliminations. You just need to know what should be eliminated. Okay, so no calculations, no actually doing a consolidation, just knowing when a consolidation is needed and what is done during the process of a consolidation. Okay, so this is not going to be a lot of numbers at all. In section E, I said there were a couple of things added. We have this identify and explain methods for testing the adequacy of internal controls, inquiry, observation, inspection, and reperformance. And then how do we remediate or fix any problems that we discovered in internal controls? Yeah, that's what's added in section E. In section F, we need to identify or define data management, logistic regression, and recognize when it's appropriate, and calculate the result of multiple regression equations as applied to a specific situation. Okay. A lot of this we already have in the materials about multiple regression analysis. So it's really just this logistic regression that we need to learn. Okay. Not a lot that's added in part 1, section F. In part 2, section A, we're adding analyze financial statement data to identify patterns and trends. Okay, we kind of do this anyway, vertical and horizontal financial statements. This is already being done. We add in corporate finance, one line item, identify the advantages and disadvantages of debt financing versus equity financing. I think this was already in our materials, just as we talk about these things. Section E, add the profitability index and describe how sensitivity analysis is used. Again, profitability index used to be in the exam. Sensitivity analysis, I think, is there already. Okay, so it's just very minor changes. And in section F, identify and explain the different types of business fraud, define data ethics, and demonstrate a general understanding of the purpose of governmental data protection regulations. And this is common information that we read in the news these days about the need to have data privacy and make certain that everything is being taken care of properly with the data that companies have. And so that's it. Those are the changes that are being made to the learning outcome statements. Not large, not big, nothing that you need to worry about, but it's a good reason to go ahead and finish your studies and get your exam passed before the syllabus changes. So, any questions about that? I will say at Hawk, we will have all of the materials ready. This is something that we've been working on. We will have all of the materials ready before you need them. We will decide when we will make them available, whether it's the beginning of January, probably somewhere around there. But as you can see, the difference between the materials will be a few pages here and a few pages there. Okay. And so when we announce the new materials, we'll also give the guide as to, what are the pages in your existing book that you don't need to study anymore if you get into the September exam window. We will take care of all of that. We will have the materials updated. We'll have the questions updated. We'll have everything updated and ready to go when you need to start studying the new syllabus. Any other questions? Because I know that was a question.
Yeah, so you answered it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, can you share some tips or advice for candidates planning to take the CMA exam under the new syllabus? Or
It's really no
for,
different than under what?
for the current syllabus also?
The one tip that I think I've realized that people ask a lot about that I've started to share the most, and so I'll share it here. And that's a tip that has to do with how to prepare for the essays, how to prepare for the problems. This is a common question people ask. How do I prepare for the essays? How do I prepare for the problems? And let me see here if I have it at my desk that I can look quickly. So here's what you need to keep in mind. These are the learning outcome statements currently for the CMA exam. Okay, I use them, I look at them, but these are the learning outcome statements, all 30 pages of it or whatever it is. And so if I were to ask you, what is tested on the multiple choice questions? What do you have to study on the multiple choice questions? The answer is this content that's in the learning outcome statements.
Yeah.
This is what is tested on the multiple choice questions. Now, if I asked you what material is tested on the essays and on the problems,
Same.
it's exactly the same material.
Yeah.
And so when people say, how do you study for the essays? I say, the same way you study for the MCQs. And so an example, if we take part 2, you can get a multiple choice question about ratios. So you can get a multiple choice question that says, what's the current ratio? You can also get tested about ratios in an essay or a problem. What's the current ratio? Well, the formula to calculate the current ratio for the MCQ is exactly the same formula that you use to calculate the current ratio in an essay. It's the same information. It's the same calculation. It's the same formulas. It's the same step-by-step process. And so I think people need to have a little bit of a shift in their mindset, a shift in how we think about this, that the essays do not require a different way of preparing. It's the same information. If you know how to answer multiple choice questions about ratios, you know how to answer problems about ratios. So in your mind, don't let the essays become more difficult than they are. If you go through your MCQs and you get 80% of your MCQs correct, you will probably get about 80% of the points on the essays because it's the same content. And so it doesn't require anything special to study for the essays. What you should do is, as you're studying and we have the essays and the problems come up in our study system, you should do them. And you should look at them and you should read them and you should become familiar with how they ask the questions. But the content that you need to study, the information that you need to know for the essays, is exactly the same information that you need to know for the MCQs. So don't make it difficult. Let it be just as simple for the essays as it is for the MCQs.
اوكي ثانك يو شباب. لو في شخص عنده سؤال ممكن اساله بالعربي، ممكن نترجم اعمل له ترانسليشن لمستر براين طوالي. لو في شخص عنده اي سؤال بالعربي اكتبوا سؤالكم بالعربي. طيب محمد علي, isn't better to make new modifications so that I can keep up with developments. ما فهمت الحاجة دي، ممكن تشرح الحاجة دي أكتر؟
I think in this case for the exam, the changes are not large enough for it to really be a problem. It's not something to change your exam strategy for. Whatever plan you have for when you're taking part 1 and part 2, you just continue to do that. The changes are, it's not like there's a whole new section G that you need to prepare for if you wait. Okay, so it's just a matter of what it is that you're doing. There's another question that we get that I think kind of comes out of all of this change, and that has to do with one of the things that people were expecting was, how is it that, or why is there not a lot more about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT on the exam? How is it that that's not something that's being added? And I understand that on one hand, yes, that's a very current thing, and a lot of people are learning all of that. But on the other hand, it's very difficult to test that on an exam because all of that technology is changing very quickly. And so if they were to try to test how you actually use some tool, how you actually do this in the real world, in 2 months, that question will be incorrect because there will be a new tool. There'll be a new process. And so it's very difficult to test current events in a sense, because it's always changing. And so going back to the old syllabus, AI is in the old syllabus. It's discussed what it is. Okay, we talk about automation and that kind of process of taking these repetitive tasks that accountants do and having them automated. And that's still being done. The tool that we use for that is different. The tool is changing every month. It's a new tool or a new program that we're using. But current events can't be tested in a certification exam like this. I see somebody asked the question, what is the difference between CMA and Cma? And what is better, CMA or ACCA? The difference is, the long answer is that if you go back in time, Cima was intended to do something different than CMA. Cima and ACCA, and also ACA in England, were essentially replacing the college education, and that became part of the exam process. And so if you look at ACCA, the first papers are debit credit. What's a balance sheet? How do we do basic accounting? Because that was part of your education. CMA, on the other hand, is a professional designation, a professional certification, and it assumes that you already have a university education. It's one of the eligibility requirements. And so in your university education, you will have seen, or you will have learned, that basic accounting fundamentals. So CIMA includes all of that content in the exam, learning all of that basic accounting, and CMA does not. And so that is why CMA is 2 exams and CIMA is 13, 14. I don't know what the number is that it is, but it's just more. So which is better? I don't know. That depends on what you want to do with your career. That depends on what you are looking for. If you are working in a company where everybody is CIMA qualified, then you probably need to do CIMA because that's where you're working and that's what you're looking at right now. If you're looking not at a specific job, but a general certification, I believe CMA is excellent. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been teaching, I've taught CIMA, I've taught ACCA, I've taught CFA, I've taught all of these different certifications. And what makes CMA, in my opinion, different from all of the others is that everything on the CMA exam is relevant. Everything is current. Everything you study in CMA, your company does. Or if your company does not do it, your company should do it. And so when you're studying CMA, you're never sitting at home studying and thinking, why am I learning this? Why am I studying this? And it makes it a lot easier to study when you know that what you are studying is going to be used in your career. And so CMA, it's shorter, it's faster, it's 2 exams. It's not easier. CMA is not easy because it's 2 exams, but you're able to complete it in a shorter period of time because it's only 2 exams. And so it's not easier, but it's shorter. And if you work hard, if you make that commitment and that dedication to studying and passing, you can finish CMA in 18 months. Okay, some people do it in less than that, but that's a realistic expectation for how long it is that you can finish CMA. There's a question, what is the most challenge for CMA students if the background is not finance or accounting? Well, this is a good question. I'm sorry?
He's one of my
Yeah.
students.
Yeah, this is a good question. And the answer is, it will be more difficult if you don't have an accounting or finance background, but it's not a lot more difficult because CMA does not test debits and credits. It doesn't test what's the journal entry to account for this transaction. You need to understand what fixed assets are. You need to understand how to depreciate fixed assets, but you don't have to make the journal entries for fixed assets. And so it's not an exam that tests the details of how to do accounting. When I teach it and you look at the math that you need to do, none of the math is difficult by itself. It's formulas, plus, minus, multiply, divide. There's not a lot of really complicated math. And so the way I look at it is that what we're doing in the CMA exam is basic math that's applied to a business situation. What is the maximum price we will charge? Or what's the minimum price we'll charge? What's the maximum price that we will pay? The math isn't difficult. The accounting isn't difficult. We just need to understand what we are trying to calculate. And the math just kind of happens. If we understand what we're doing when we're making these decisions or making these calculations, the formula just kind of creates itself by understanding what it is that we're trying to do in that math. So yes, it will be a little bit more difficult if you don't have an accounting or finance background, but it's not impossible. And you'll learn a lot of that information that you need just in the process of studying. But it'll take a little bit longer for you to go through that studying process if you don't have the background. The other comments are not in a form that I can read. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the comment. I don't know if you're allowed to turn on your audio or not, but whatever questions you have, I'm happy to answer them.
Someone is asking about if he didn't pass the first part under the current syllabus and he will retake the exam with the new updates, right?
Yes, if you fail part 1 in
June,
June, you will have to take the new exam format in September, which means, again, that there are 5 new pages you need to study and 8 pages you can forget. Okay, so it's not It's not a disaster if that happens to you. Even if you don't fail in May or June, you just simply aren't able to take it. Okay. I mean, you get married, you have children, and you're not able to study like you wanted to. So instead of taking it in June, you decide to take it in September. That's fine. These 5 pages you need to study, and these 8 pages you don't need to study anymore. It's not a problem.
Yeah. There is question from Mustafa. Can I ask you why CMA ignores some accounting standards while taking into account some standards like Accounting Standard Codification 606? In my opinion, being certified management accountant means I should understand all standards.
Well,
Many,
if you're talking
yeah,
if you're talking about the financial accounting standards, that's not part of, I mean, yes, a management accountant should understand the basics of financial accounting, but not all of the details of financial accounting. And that's what they test in part 1, section A is, do you know how financial accounting impacts the way the business operates? What is the information that a company needs to be able to make the decisions that they're going to use? And so if we look at what's covered in financial accounting, it's inventory, it's accounts receivable, it's fixed assets. Well, inventory and accounts receivable is working capital management. Fixed assets is capital budgeting. And so we're looking at what are the elements of financial accounting that impact management accounting and decisions that the company makes. And so a lot of the financial accounting standards are just more detailed than a person would really need to know in doing their job. Does that answer the question?
يارو كده يكفيك ولا ما يكفيك؟ If the
There's a
CMA,
question, can we provide the LOS as a PDF in the system? Yes, we can. I will see here actually. Can I? I will, let me, I think I can attach it as a file to this chat.
one of my students is asking if I have an account in Hawk system, will I be able to have the updated materials? Yes.
Yes, you will. And actually if you're studying in January, February, March, April, May, or June, you'll actually have access to both sets of materials because we don't know what you'll need. So there will be one way to access the 2020 syllabus and one way to access the 2024 syllabus. But again, the good news is if you pick the wrong one, it doesn't matter very much. It's a little detail in terms of whether it's the 2020 syllabus or the 2024 syllabus.
Okay, there is question about, is the CMA related to tax auditing jobs?
I'm sorry, does it help what jobs?
Tax auditing jobs, related to tax auditing jobs.
Not really, no. Unless you are in a tax or audit position where you also have, the way I put it is responsibility for a budget. If you are the head of your department or the head of division or whatever it is, and what your business, your unit does is part of the company as a whole, then the benefit to you comes from understanding how this fits into the whole business. I had a conversation a few years ago with a person, and he was working in a company as collections. He was the one who called the customers and said, you owe us money, you need to pay. And he was very good. So he got promoted to the head of the collections department. And he said what happened was he went into meetings for all the managers of the company, and he didn't understand all of it. He was an expert in collections, but he didn't understand the rest of the business. So he studied CMA so that he would understand the rest of the business. And now he's not the head of collections anymore. He's, by this time, probably 3 or 4 levels higher because he understood how the business operates. and how what one part of the business does over here impacts what happens in another part of the business. Okay, each little department is not operating by itself. It is connected to, and the best example, I think, is, if we talk about foreign currency and the exposure, the risk of foreign currency exchange rates change. Well, for some companies, if they are purchasing raw materials and selling finished goods in foreign currencies, the fact that they are both buying and selling in foreign currencies, that kind of eliminates their risk. Because if it's good for selling, it's bad for buying. If it's bad for selling, it's good for buying. And so if each individual department went out and tried to hedge and manage those risks about foreign currency transactions, they'd really be spending a lot of time doing something that if they sat down together and realized that each of their own operations, in a sense, mitigated or managed the risks that they had. And so this is the example also of enterprise risk management, ERM, looking at risks from the enterprise standpoint and not each individual department. And so what CMA will teach you is not enterprise risk management, enterprise management, how it is that the enterprises are run. There's a question about how the book is updated. When we have the updated book, it will just appear for you in my studies. Okay, there's nothing you will need to do. Whether or not you want to use the new book will depend on when you're going to be taking your exam. So, but yeah, all the new content will be there. You won't have to do anything to get it.
Is the CMA good for someone with engineering degrees or degree?
If you want to get into business, yes, absolutely. And I know that engineers generally do very well on the CMA exam. I think it's something about the way their mind thinks as an engineer. But yes, if you want to get into business or the business side of engineering, I think CMA is a very, very good certification for somebody who has their own business. If you have your own business in any field, CMA will help you know how to operate that business, the questions you need to ask, the things that you need to consider to operate your business.
Is it benefit for someone his specialization is finance?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the ways, and I'll use CFA as the comparison, CMA or CFA. CFA is really about investment banking. And so if you know it is your purpose in life, your mission in life, the only thing you want to do is to work in investment banking, then you need to do CFA. But if you're young, your career is still starting, and you say, I like finance. Well, there's a lot of finance that is not investment banking. So CMA is a very, very good foundation. It is a very, very good first certification for somebody who is in accounting or finance. After you've worked for a few years, you begin to specialize a little bit, and your career starts to go in this direction or that direction. After that time, when you know what specialty you will be working in, then you can get another certification that's that specialty. If you're in treasury, if you're in finance, if you're a controller, if you're a regional manager, when you know what that specialty is, you can go ahead and get that specialty certification. But CFA is really a specialty certification. It's very specific. But if you get that before you know that you want to go into investment banking, you spend a lot of time studying and a lot of money for something that you're not actually going to use in your career.
Someone is asking, do I need to be professional in English or proficient in English?
No, you do not need to be fluent in English. You need to understand it. You need to remember that there is no spoken English. You don't have to say anything. And 75% of the exam is reading and A, B, C, D. So you need to be able to read it and understand it, but you don't need to be able to speak it. And in the essays and the problems, the amount that you need to write is not large. Bullet points, numbers, 2 or 3 sentences. And so as long as you're able to communicate what you want to communicate, it's fine. If it's not spelled correctly, if the grammar is not perfect, it's okay. As long as the person who's reading your writing is able to understand what you were trying to say. And the example I give is if you wrote, I teached the class yesterday. Okay, teached is not the proper past tense form of to teach, it's taught. But if you write, I teached, the person who's reading it will understand what you were trying to communicate, and you will get the points for that. Okay, they're not going to -1 because there was the wrong past tense form of the word. So yes, better English will be helpful, but also keep in mind that as you study CMA, that is actually a very, very good English class.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good class in terms of learning English. And so however you start, whatever level you start your English at, you will improve as you go through the class. You'll read more, you'll listen to more, you'll hear more, you'll read it, you'll read the questions, you'll do all of that studying in English, which is going to help. It's going to help you improve your English. Your English will get better simply by studying, simply by going through the process of studying. You will be able to, your English will improve. I'm putting another link into the chat that should link to the LOS from our website.
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully that will be printable.
Yeah.
Oh, except I sent that only to, hang on.
Yeah, send it to everyone.
I didn't send it to everyone.
Okay.
Now I send it to everyone.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Greetings, Mr. Hook.
Oh, also one thing. If you
Okay.
are not already connected with me on LinkedIn, please connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, let me share your
If you
profile.
just type in Brian Hock, I should be the first one that shows up for you because I'm probably connected with your colleagues and friends. And so I will be the one that it comes up and it says 56 mutual connections or something like that with you. So I'm happy to connect with everybody on LinkedIn.
ده بروفايل براين هوك على لينكدين. ده
Yep.
البروفايل بتاعه، وكذلك دي اللينك بتاع هوك انترناشونال.
Yeah, follow Hock International as well, because that's where we will make announcements about the new materials. LinkedIn and
قال
Facebook.
لكم تابعوا بتاع هوك انترناشونال، دي المكان اللي بنعلن فيه الابديت الجديد للماتيريال.
Yeah. What other
طيب.
questions do you have?
Greetings, Mr. Hook. As management accountant in bank, how are financial reportings or financial reports prepared this year, given that there is a quantity of assets under conflict area in Khartoum, for example?
I don't know.
How
I
to
mean, that's just one of those specialty questions. But that's, I mean, this is something actually about what is the value of CMA? Okay, I think somebody asked what are the benefits of CMA? A CMA does not teach you the answer to that question. Okay, that's a very specific question that I'm sure a lot of consultants are going to get paid a lot of money to try to answer that question. But if you with CMA and you understand what the issues are about financial reporting and what's happening as all of these investments and all of these derivatives that banks have been in are kind of maybe not as solid as we thought, you know the questions to ask and you know what it is you need to learn. And so one of the benefits of CMA is even if you don't know all of the specific details of every topic, you know enough about internal controls and budgeting and capital budgeting. You know enough to be able to learn what you need to know, what are the questions you need to ask, and you know enough that if somebody tries to tell you something that's not correct, you'll think, no, I don't think that's correct. Let's talk about this a little bit more, or let's investigate this a little bit more. And so there's no reason, you don't need to be an expert in everything. That's not possible these days. There's too much knowledge to know everything. But if you have a foundation of knowledge that goes across the business, you will be able to ask the questions that need to be asked. You will know what should be able to happen. And that's very important, to be able to know what is possible, what should be happening, and things like that.
Okay, thank you. There is question, is it beneficial for students in Sudan who are unable to obtain a college degree due to the ongoing war to study CMA and enter the job market with this certification?
Well, this is obviously an unfortunate question, not only about Sudan, but other places in the world as well. And the answer is yes, but it may not be a short-term yes. I know that everyone hopes that if you become a CMA, you will find a job. But it isn't something where you get your results that you says, congratulations, you passed the CMA, and the next email you get is going to be from a company offering you a job. Doesn't work that way. And so even after you're a CMA, you still need to go into an interview and do a good job in the interview. You need to be able to communicate. One of the questions somebody might ask you is, you're a CMA, tell me about CMA. Well, you need to have an answer prepared that allows you to tell this person what you know. This is what I studied as a CMA. This is what the certification exam required. These are the areas that I studied that are connected to the job I'm applying for. Be able to give them a link. This is the link to the syllabus. This is the link to the Institute of Management Accountants website. If you go into an interview, even if the person doesn't know about CMA, you can use that interview as a time to educate that person. I just heard the story. I was in India a few weeks ago, and somebody went to an interview and they explained CMA so well that the person who was interviewing them signed up to do CMA.
Wow.
They didn't know about it at the beginning of the interview, but at the end of the interview, they signed up to start the process of becoming a CMA. So being a CMA does not automatically and immediately mean that you will get a job. Unfortunately, nothing guarantees that you're going to get a job. But as a CMA, when the jobs become available, you will be the one that they interview because you have CMA.
Yes.
When the promotion becomes available, you will be the one that they promote because you've been doing your job better, because you have this knowledge, you have this experience. And also something about the benefits of being a CMA. Yes, passing the exam is a big benefit and a very important benefit, but don't forget about the IMA and being active within the IMA community. Okay. Even if I know that there are chapters in big cities, and there is a chapter, there's accounting organizations to be a part of. Those organizations whether it's IMA or any other accounting organization that accountants and finance professionals are part of, you need to go, you need to be active, you need to participate, and you need to volunteer to be leaders of those organizations. And I say it this way, CMA might be the reason you get introduced to IMA. It might be the reason you first join IMA. It might be the beginning, but it's not the end of your relationship with IMA. That networking, knowing people, you go to any professional organization, to a meeting, and you talk and you meet people. Those people in the future will be looking to hire somebody. They'll need an accountant. They'll need a finance professional. And when they get 15, 50, 100 resumes, and they remember you because you were at that meeting, you're going to get the interview. And so it's those relationships that you make with other professional accountants and finance people. Those relationships are where you get your next job and perhaps your best job. So it's not just CMA and you're done. You get CMA and you continue to be active, whether it's IMA, other professional associations, it doesn't matter. But networking, connecting to people, that is how you get a job. Your next job, your best job, you need to let people know who you are so that when they're looking to hire somebody, you come to mind.
Good advice from 25 years of experience.
Yeah.
Last question from Fatma. If so, what the starting point for someone with non-accounting nor finance accounting degree? Financing degree.
The starting point is page 1 of the book. and I mean that's kind of serious too. It is a question of, it's a process. And you need to start with page 1 and you start reading, you read, you do questions, you study the questions, you watch the videos, you ask questions, you go to Hammam's class, ask questions. It's something that for whatever reason, sometimes students don't want to ask questions, and I don't understand this. If there's something you're studying and you don't understand, okay, you have a few choices of what you can do. First, you can go to Google and type in whatever it is you don't understand. Please don't do that. Okay, don't use ChatGPT either. Okay, because when you go to Google, when you go to ChatGPT, what they tell you is mostly correct. Okay, it sounds good. If it comes from ChatGPT, it sounds really professional and really confident, but it's not always accurate. So don't go to Google, don't go to ChatGPT. The second thing you can do, if you're studying and there's something you just don't understand, you can just sit there and think, maybe it won't be on the exam. We'll just hope it's not on the exam. Okay? Don't do that either, right? Because it might be on the exam. But what you can do is you can ask a question. Ask somebody. Okay? If you're studying with Hammam, ask him. If you're studying with Hawk and you have our materials, ask us. That's what we're here to do, is to answer your questions. Because the question you have, we can explain it to you perhaps in 2 minutes. And you say, oh yeah, I understand that. We have a forum where we keep all these questions that people have asked over the years. And let me see if I can find out. There are 1,821 topics in our Part 1 forum and exactly 1,000 topics in our Part 2 forum. So whatever question you have, probably somebody else has also had this question and asked this question. So go into the forum. Search. Ask the question. A lot of times, the question you ask in your mind is not on the CMA exam. You know, when people start a question with "at work yesterday," well, it's very possible that work is outside. I say we've got here.
LLS.
We've got the LOS. Okay, this tells us what's on the exam, and work is sometimes out here. And so sometimes our answer to your question is, don't worry about it. It's not on the exam. You've taken the topic that we have on the exam and you've gone a little too far with it. So ask questions. Okay, this is not only for people that are just starting. This is for anybody who's studying. If there's something you don't understand, ask. Ask your teacher, ask us. Don't ask Google though. And please don't ask ChatGPT.
She's asking about your LinkedIn account profile. Okay, خلينا
Asking what it is?
LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile. Yes one.
Yep.
Let me share it.
I should be able to.
Yeah, you can share.
Yep. Here's my LinkedIn profile. I will send this to everyone.
ده البروفايل.
Yep.
So,
So connect with me.
yeah.
Oh, and it looks like I have a few people that have connected with me. What other questions do you have?
People are asking about the new subscription model for Hawk International. What about this?
Well,
last a lot of money to get access for unlimited time. Now it's monthly.
Well, if you do the math, okay, and this is what we did. And before, to purchase all of our material was $980. Okay. And that was to get the textbook, the test bank, and the videos. Now it's $59 per month if you subscribe month by month. That is 16 months of access. Now, if you do it, or 2 years if you subscribe 6 months at a time. And so what we've done is we've reduced the cost of starting to study. You don't have to buy it anymore. You are essentially renting it. And this also gives you more control over how much the materials cost. Because when you buy the material and you have access for an unlimited time period, you don't need to start studying today or tomorrow or next week or next month. You never need to start studying because you can wait until you want to. But if you're paying every month,
you go to study.
There's an advantage to starting to study and continue. And also with the subscription, if you know that you're not going to study for a month, stop the subscription. Don't pay. You know, if you're going to be on vacation for 3 of the next 4 weeks of the subscription, just stop the subscription. When you come back, all of your history, all of your statistics will still be there. And you won't have had to pay for the time that you weren't using the material. I think, and time will tell me if I'm correct or not, but I believe that this is the model that materials are going to move to. I think we're first, but I don't think we're going to be last in terms of putting the subscription putting the materials into a subscription model. The other thing too is we have a lot of people, or a number of people, who purchased other materials and aren't happy. So they come to us and they say, my exam is in a month. Can I get your videos? Well, before I would have to say, well, the videos are $270 for 1 month. Now, for people that are have studied with other providers and are looking for 1 month or 2 months before their exam, you don't have to purchase. You're just able to essentially rent the material for that 1 month or 2 months that you need. And so really, we're trying to make the cost of the materials lower. And if not lower, at least easier to do. Because a small amount every month is better than a large amount at the beginning.
طيب شباب، في زول عنده سؤال تاني؟ I thought it's going to be just 30-minute session, but it's 10
Oh, really?
minutes.
Well, the syllabus was 30 minutes. Yeah.
شكرا جزيلا.
Well, if you think of any questions after we're done, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can send an email to support@Hawk International, CMA@Hawk International. Amam will be able to answer your questions. So this isn't your last chance to ask any questions.
لو عندكم أي سؤال ممكن توجهوا لي السؤال. أنا التحديث في الكورس حق CMA. أوكي، لو أنت بتدرس معاي أنا أو أنت بتدرس في السيستم بتاعك مباشرة، أي أبديت بينزل لكم طوالي، ما في مشكلة. حتى الجروبات اللي أنا من عندي خلصت الأبديت الجديد حدرس لهم تاني، فما في مشكلة. في شخص ثاني عنده سؤال موجه لي أنا، موجه لمستر براين. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Brian. Thank you for everyone.
My pleasure. I didn't understand what you said, but I agree.
He asked me about the updates. I told him that if you are studying with me or you are using Mr. Brian website directly, any updates are, yeah. I will.
Yeah, we'll take care of you.
I take care. What are the steps required for someone who wants to start with Hook now? hookinternational.com.
Go to the website.
طيب شكرا جزيلا يا شباب، شكرا لكم هنا ومتابعيننا على الفيسبوك، على القاعدين معنا في الميتنج هنا او في الصفحه بتاعتي انا في عاطف او في سوداني سيرتيفايد اكاونتنتس، كلكم في الفيسبوك بيج. شكرا جزيلا لكم على انكم قضيتوا معنا وقت، ونحن شاكرين جدا لمستر براين. ثانك يو مستر براين for your time and for your knowledge, experience, guidance and support for everything.
My pleasure.
It's not night, right? It's time now in USA. Morning.
3 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. Nice weekend, Mr. Brian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You too. Goodbye, everyone.